Hi everyone and welcome to the Edge of the Bed YouTube channel. I haven't posted in a while, but we're back now, and I just thought I could do a bit of a Q&A with you all and answer some questions that I got on Instagram, focusing on the specific question: how did my mum react when I told her about the sexual abuse? And I know this is a question I get a lot because it's a fear for many people that they have about speaking out. So I'm just going to go through and answer that and a few other of the questions, and then just a general catch up at the end as well. Okay, so how did my mum react? The first question that I got. See, my mum found out through the police, so I went to the police and the police came to the house to arrest him. From what she's told me, she, ended up shouting at him, screaming at him. So her initial response, as you can imagine, was like distraught anger, but it was towards him straight away. She had no doubt in her mind that I was lying or anything like that. She knew me well. Yeah, straight away she believed me and she was angry at him and never wanted to see him again. I saw her that night. She came to where I was staying because I stayed at a friend's house after I spoke out, after I went to the police. And, the first thing she asked me was, why didn't you tell me sooner? Which is, I think, it's a question that a lot of parents have for children that have been abused. And, I've gone into those complex emotions before of why I didn't. Yeah, she was compassionate and stuff. I think that initial thing, she was in some sort of quite a panic and quite struggled to understand everything. But as time went on, she tried to support me. I think it was quite difficult at times to open up conversations with me, which is understandable for someone who she'd never been in that world before. She herself hasn't been abused, so she was it was like such a shock to her, and she had no experience with it before. So I think she tried her best, but there was parts of the relationship that was hard. I think that she struggled to understand, I guess. When you get out of an abusive situation and then you're just left in the real world, it can be quite hard for survivors to settle in, and it usually comes out in some sort of in different ways. So for me, I never went to college, and I was angry all the time, and I was quite reclusive, and I got a bit of an eating disorder and I wouldn't leave the house, and it was quite hard for people to understand why I was doing that, I think, and I think she struggled to empathise with that side. But I can't say that she didn't support me, because she provided a roof over my head and food and that type of thing during those years. So there is still that awkwardness there, and I think we'd all agree as a family that we probably do need to sit down and talk about things in more depth. But there is still that awkwardness there around the topic. It was a bit of a whirlwind, and it still feels like a whirlwind since it all happened. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. I hope that's in depth enough. When I bring it up, sometimes my mum can shut down a little bit. I think her and herself feels a bit of guilt towards what happened. And I guess this leads on well to my next question, which was, how did my mum not know about what was happening? And so for me, if you haven't heard my story, the sexual abuse went on from 8 till about 12, 13, 14. It's hard to remember when it exactly stopped, but it's around that period of time. It happened within the home. Yeah, it often happened in the shower, in the bathroom, or in my bedroom. It's a hard question to answer. How did she not know? Because I can't put myself in her shoes. Do I think she had any suspicion? I don't think so. I don't know, though. I don't know. And it's not something that I think she would admit to, in terms of protecting me as well. But I think that there were moments where it's hard for me to say, but maybe I would question what was happening. So, like at age 13, my stepdad would come into the bathroom, lock the door behind him, and be in there for 20, 30 minutes, which I guess some people would look at and think, but he kind of created that as a norm. So when he first started the sexual abuse, it happened in the shower, and I was scared of water when I was young. When I was around 8 years old when it started, I was scared of water, and he would come in to help me and stop me sort of kicking off, because I used to kick off in the bath, in the shower. And so it became a norm in the house that he would come into the shower and help me in the shower, even though I'd turned 12, 13, sorry, and it was still happening. The times where mum knocked on the door, it's like, oh, is everything okay? Is everything all right? Or she'd wait, outside, and I don't know, there's just instances like that where I think, was she curious? Was she worried? So I think how I would answer this really is just saying that abusers are really manipulative, and I've heard this said before, where an abuser doesn't just groom the child, they groom the whole community and the family as well. And he was a master at it, and he'd done it before to another family too, so he really knew the tactics of what to do in order to manipulate people to thinking he would never do something like that, and that's such a powerful tool that these types of people use to do this. So I think that plays a big part of it. I think my mum wasn't exposed to this type of abuse before, and I think she wouldn't even have thought of it in, I guess, a worse situation, which is why this education is so important as well for me to go and speak to the parents, which I'll touch on a little bit later. I would answer it and say that he manipulated her just as much as he manipulated me and the whole family as well. And he was good. He was experienced at doing of abusing, and I think, you know, looking at abusers and their behaviours, and I've learned a lot living with my abuser for them years in terms of what their behaviour is like. And it's kind of like, it's a hard comparison, but it's like a serial killer. They will base their life around the abuse. So, you know, like a serial killer like Jeffrey Dahmer, let's say, their whole life is centered around what's happening, and they create their lives around keeping the secret of what they're doing. You know, they're very careful about the friendships they make, they're careful, and everything, basically what is happening is at the centre, and that's what it was like for him. His whole life revolved around abusing children, and I was, I guess, one of his main targets. And, you know, them years going on holiday and him having a family and him being part of a local church and him raising money for charity was all part of allowing that to happen. And that's what's quite difficult for those who haven't been abused and haven't, you know, spent time with people who abuse people. Just to finish that off, how did you not know he was a master manipulator, and it was the centre of his life to keep that secret? And it's pretty difficult as a parent to spot those things if you haven't had education and experience and have that knowledge that this happens, which I don't think my mum did. So the next question was, how am I now? How am I doing now in life? It's a tough question. I feel in general I'm doing good. You know, I'm 22 years old. I've just completed my teacher training. I've got my degree, first class degree. I feel like in general terms of being a 22-year-old, I'm where I should be at. I do have my own struggles, and I think I've never been fully vulnerable on this page, and I feel like that's been such a difficult thing for me to be. Even on the Instagram page, like, it's really hard for me to just be myself, and even now I can feel myself putting on a bit of an act in front of the camera, but I'm really trying now to just be myself and be fully vulnerable and honest when I'm talking about these types of things. And I think I recognise things within myself that is due to the abuse, and for me, insecurity and struggling to believe in myself is a big one, and I always see myself as not valuing as much as others, and this is something that I work through. And, you know, I think the important step to it is I recognised it and I can work on it because of that. And, you know, that insecurity propels in other things. It propels into your relationships, and I think I am quite good at saying, like, oh, I'm pretty bad at that, I need to, like, sort that out. Whereas others, you know, sometimes struggle to recognise those things that have stemmed from a trauma in their childhood, and that's when it becomes quite damaging to people sometimes. So I think if you are someone who is struggling after it, and you kind of rejecting the fact that it's from your childhood trauma, then maybe rethink it and say, oh, you know, that could be due to it, and I can do something about it. Other things I struggle with myself is I struggle a lot more with PTSD symptoms, you know, night terrors and that sort of thing. In recent years, I've been quite fine with that. I think for me, another thing I'm struggling with is where to take prevention pathways in this channel, and the platform I've built. It's kind of like, okay, right, we've got these people now, these survivors that are watching, and these parents. How do I get my message across? What's the best way? And I kind of overthink that, and I'm someone who is I'm very much an in the moment person. When I get an idea, I want to push it as quick as I can rather than thinking it through and processing it and working on it, which has been quite complex when, you know, there's so many projects that I could go down and work on. And yeah, I guess that leads well into the catch up now. So in terms of prevention pathways, we have a training thing planned in September with some youth workers, and you know, I've had a rethink of how I'm going to do that. I was going to do it very much traditional training traditional training course style, and I'm having a rethink, and I'm thinking of doing it more of question and answer based. Here's my story, here's what I have to say. And I've created a sort of model of abuse prevention for parents, for youth workers and stuff, that I'm going to base the training off of that. Because I think now awareness of child sexual abuse is quite adequate. Like it's getting to be adequate in terms of what you see online and in the media and stuff. It's getting to a point where it's like, okay, people know about this, they know it happens, they know the statistics. But I think where we lack is, what can parents do, what can youth leaders do, what can teachers do, what can they actually physically do in their practice, or even as a parent, that's going to help prevent this from happening to their children or the children that they work with. So I think for me, that's where I place the focus on. And the most valuable thing for me is hearing the voices of survivors, because we know the mindset of a child that's stuck in abuse, so we know what will allow or encourage disclosures. So that's where I'm looking in terms of that. We've been filming the Survivor documentary, which has included our Survivor interviews, which will go into our training. So that's worked very well together. And it's been really good and healing for me to walk around and speak to survivors. It's something I've never done before, and they're telling me their challenges, and I'm reflecting, and I'm like, you know what, I struggle with that as well. So yeah, it's definitely been something really valuable. The last thing I wanted to touch on in today's video is I wanted to just say and ask, what would you value from this? I'm thinking of doing some sort of like healing vlogs where, I reflected in the documentary recently about how I haven't gone back to therapy or tried alternative therapies. Maybe doing a vlog where I try different therapies out and see how it works, or even vlogging us filming the Survivor documentary and you getting to meet the survivors along with me as well. I think could be really cool. Current affairs I was thinking of covering as well within the world of child protection, child welfare. Some of the topics I've thought about covering is some of the online sting operations people are doing, like, I don't know if you've heard of Vitali, or even some of current things that are coming out, such as the abuse in UK schools that's been happening. So let me know if that would be something helpful, along with some healing philosophy type videos as well. I've got loads of things that I would be happy to do, and we've got this platform now, and I want to hear from you, and also I can do Q&As, whatever it is that's going to be helpful to survivors or parents, or those working with children and young people as well. So please do let me know that. I am trying to keep this space, I think with the way things are going, it feels like I should be going pretty like corporate with this, and it feels as though like I see other people going to that sort of corporate thing, but I want to keep it authentic. And at the end of the day, I'm a survivor, and that is primarily the value I bring. I'm a teacher now as well. I am someone who has an educational background in psychology and child development, so I have that understanding too. But what makes me different and what brings value more than anything is that I'm a survivor, and that's what other survivors bring, and that's what I believe in, that survivor-led prevention and things. So I'm going to keep it authentic and keep it how it is, and I'm going to share things personal about my life and share Journey Life through the page, and not make it that corporate like charity run thing. Prevention Pathways account can be like that, and it's probably better it being like that. And I mean, if you want to hear more from me going forward, if you're at a school, if you're a teacher, youth worker, anything like that, I'm starting to do talks now, public speaking, about my story, about the active approaches to prevention that I've been talking about so frequently. So if you have an interest in that and you want to contact me on Instagram, and you can book me to come and speak, either to your staff or to young people in your schools and youth groups as well. And yeah, that's the catch up done, and I want to thank you all for watching, and yeah, please do comment any suggestions or what would be helpful or valuable to you as a survivor, or you as a teacher, or someone that works with children and young people as well.